നമസ്കാരം. ദ ബിഗ് ഇന്റർവ്യൂയിലേക്ക് സ്വാഗതം. സ്വതന്ത്ര ഭാരതത്തിലെ ആദ്യ മുഴുവൻ സമയ വനിതാ പ്രതിരോധ മന്ത്രി, ആദ്യ മുഴുവൻ സമയ വനിതാ ധനകാര്യമന്ത്രി. ഈ മുഴുവൻ സമയം എന്ന് എടുത്തു പറഞ്ഞത് പാർട്ട് ടൈം മന്ത്രിമാർ ഉള്ളതുകൊണ്ടല്ല. ശ്രീമതി ഇന്ദിരാഗാന്ധി പ്രധാനമന്ത്രിയായിരുന്നപ്പോൾ ഈ വകുപ്പുകളുടെ അധിക ചുമതല കുറച്ചു കാലം വഹിച്ചിരുന്നു. പിന്നെ പ്രധാനമന്ത്രി മോദിയുടെ നാരി ശക്തി എന്ന ആ ഒരു മുദ്രാവാക്യത്തിൻ്റെ ഒരു ജീവിക്കുന്ന ഒരു പ്രതീകം. ഇന്നത്തെ അതിഥി ശ്രീമതി നിർമ്മല സീതാരാമൻ. സ്വാഗതം ജനം ടി വിയിലേക്ക്. ഇന്നത്തെ ഏറ്റവും വലിയ പ്രതിപക്ഷത്തിൻ്റെ ആരോപണം, the biggest allegation of the opposition is that ED and other agencies are being used as a political tool by BJP to hunt the opposition, to choke them before the elections, etc. How would you respond?
That's not true at all. ED or any law enforcement agencies cannot build a case up overnight. So it's not as if, oh, election has come, I need to oppress the opposition, so I am putting a case today. Tomorrow it comes up for hearing, day after I am arresting you. No, it doesn't happen that way. It takes immense lot of time and evidences and proper process to build even a case. Now, in the cases of many of these political bigwigs that you are referring to, cases have been piling up. Some of them were even filed for the first time even during UPA time. They are coming to fruition now. So, it is election time, therefore. No, it has been, due process has been taking all these years. They are coming close now. So, the other question which comes in my mind is, just because it's election time, the fight against corruption will have to be stopped? Just because they are opposition leaders? Otherwise, a common citizen, if he does something wrong, the law goes, law enforcement goes, agencies ask them questions. So, for a common citizen, whether it is election time or any other time, it goes on doing its job. Like that, anyone who has questions to answer on how law has been disregarded will happen whether there is election or not. So, we will have to keep all this in mind.
Now, Kejriwal avoided or evaded actually the summons 9 times. Now he is behind the bars. Now the summons has come to the Kerala former finance minister.
He's been kept in custody or kept in judicial remand for questioning. Behind bars means that.
Right. Now, the former finance minister of Kerala, Sri Thomas Isaac, has been evading for 7 times, if I am right. Finally, now the Enforcement Directorate has filed the first information report, or the ECIR, against the daughter of Kerala Chief Minister or her company. Now, so is the ED closing in on Kerala politicians too?
Well, wherever the cases are maturing to come to that point, it will reach that point and institutions will have to be respected by responding to them. I do not want to quote this, but it is an example before us. Even at that time, it was closer to election. When the Chief Minister of Gujarat, it was also closer to election. You did not mind doing it? And how did he respond? He went honorably, said, I do not need anybody with me, I am going, sitting, let them ask me questions, came out of it after about 7-8 hours of non-stop questioning and stood before the media and said, they asked me to come, I have answered every question to the best of my capability and now I am going back. He did not evade. That was also before an election. And the Supreme Court and layers of court and various appeals going to the Supreme Court level proved that those were politically motivated. Now, that is not what is this one. The set of allegations and the FIRs are based on things which happened over the years, and some, as I said, happened and FIR or the first case was filed during UPA time.
Now, the ED has been active in Kerala for quite some time. Not a very good news. One is the cooperative bank sector, where several scams have broken. And the Prime Minister himself has assured the candidate there that the culprits will be brought to book, and more importantly, their deposit, their money will be returned. So, but there has also been questions from the court whether the probe is, going ahead in the expected pace or speed. Is there a delay? Is there a, a lacunae in the ED probe into the Kerala cooperative banks, especially
I
the
may
Kadaman?
not be able to answer case by case about the merit of how the work is processing or about the perfection with which the case is getting built up. But it is a fact that evidence and also witnesses, gathering witnesses and bringing in evidence and also putting all the papers together, answering every question of the courts does take time. So, the agencies will have to do a proper job, otherwise the case that they are building will also not hold good. The courts can always say, you are wrong, there is no case here. No agency wants to be pointed out like that because their credibility gets affected.
You answered part of my next question earlier, but to bring it out specifically, there is a new narrative that's being built. ED Niralil Janadhipatyam, democracy overshadowed by ED, being built up by major media houses and newspapers, trying to portray the fact that ED is banging on opposition. The media narrative, it's not an allegation that the editorial pages are carrying articles like this. It's not as if they're quoting somebody. They themselves are saying.
See, if you think you are in the opposition or if you think you are a party which is opposed to the government in power in center, even if you are in power in state, there should be immunity given for whatever you do. May not hold good. You didn't have that virtue even with BJP leaders when you were in power. Then when every day there was a corruption scandal coming out during 2004 and 14, there was completely a lot of people from different sections of the society, inclusive of media. There was this comment that CBI is like a caged parrot. You didn't allow them to do what is per law required by them to do, to go after corrupt fellows. They were caged parrot. So, because most of the corruption was happening in the government itself, you didn't want the CBI to come out freely because they will have to ask questions of probably sitting ministers, political party leaders who were associated with UPA. You had nobody from the opposition who you can drive them after. Whereas now the case is CBI is not a caged parrot, ED is not a caged parrot, they are doing their business. And where are they finding people and evidence? With the opposition. There is no scandal or no corruption in Prime Minister Modi's government. So, they can't divert and come this way, they can't take a U-turn, it is all that side and therefore they are going after that.
Well, the season's most favorite slogan, theory. Why is the central government choking the finances of Kerala state?
Is it?
But that's the most.
No, I am asking you that question. Are we choking?
That's
not at all. And after all, I said this much before they went to the court, and I am saying this even now when the matter is still in the court. Every fact has been placed before the honorable courts. The Supreme Court has gone through all our details. I know it is still sub judice, so I may not be able to say what the outcome will be. But clearly, some of the fundamental questions or questions of principle, can the central government ask a state government to borrow or not to borrow? Can there be conditions put to borrowing? These are questions which the Supreme Court had a look at by us placing all the facts. They have not said, central government, you have no power to control the state government. The plenary powers are with the central government is fully recognized. So, irrespective of what the learned court is going to give us, their order for the interim relief application from Kerala, central government has not till now found fault with for doing something or for not doing something. They have not found us fault with for not helping Kerala. No, we do not help any state. What we do on the contrary is what is right, what we are expected to do, we have to give every state which is their due. I can't treat any one state specially, or I can't punish any one state because I do not like them. It just happens by formula, and that is what is going on.
Proceedings in the court was quite interesting. It looked more like a negotiation between two parties, with the Supreme Court trying to play the role of the mediator, asking center whether you can give this, when asking the state of Kerala, why don't you take this now and wait for the next round. The state says no. We are eligible for like 57,000 crore a loan, and the center is putting conditions, they're putting caps, they are bringing in earlier commitments, earlier debts into place, etc. So,
bringing earlier debt into play is because it was extra budgetary. You are not allowed to do it. And that was not a treatment offered only to Kerala. There were other states which also did similar things, which were pulled up by the CAG, and the treatment that we have provided for Kerala in correcting the course is exactly the treatment offered for other states as well, who are similarly placed. So, there is no choking. Well, if I will take this opportunity, I will certainly say the left government does not probably know how better to handle their own resources. Their fiscal management is something which they may want to introspect on. Fiscal management is something which the government will have to introspect on. I have also heard, oh, the central government's borrowings are going up, so how can they accuse us? I can stand up anywhere and say that if the central government has borrowed, it is borrowed to give states and also to spend from its account on creating assets, which in turn will help you create jobs, which in turn will bring you revenues. We have not borrowed to spend on revenue heads. There is a tangible difference between this and that. And even borrowed money was given for states to build their capital assets, 50-year interest free. That is not a burden on the states, it is a burden on me, because that is borrowed money I am giving, I will pay back. I am not asking you to pay back, but I am encouraging you to take that money as interest free 50-year loan, which after 50 years you know what worth it will be, but in the meanwhile spend on creating assets. Build a bridge, build a dam, build your secretariat, or build roads, or build your port, or enhance capacity in something. Thereby it will go towards creating jobs and bringing value addition. So, all borrowings are not comparable. You borrow for, I do not know for what, and then keep it outside of budget. So, assembly does not approve it, it is happening outside. Is that right? But the repayment will have to be done by the state's finances. Is that right? When a company under the government, state government, borrows money, it borrows on its income sources, and that borrowing will be paid back by that company. If after that borrowing, the state government will have to pay that money back, was the original approval taken from the assembly to borrow? No. That is where the difference lies.
For the benefit of the viewers, you were referring to the KIFBI and the Masala bond, right?
KIFBI.
KIFBI, right. Now, my question is, the state government has failed in paying the welfare pensions for a long time. It kept blaming the earlier government, but it's still in default about 4 months. Because of the elections, they managed to pay 2 or 3 months arrears. Last month, probably for the first time in the recent history, salary payments were delayed, pension payments were delayed, and all that, once again the blame comes back to the union government, saying we couldn't because the union government didn't help us. So my question is, you have already answered that, but my question is, do we use this borrowed money to pay pension, to pay salary, and to pay interest, you gave me a totally different idea. So how does this argument?
Yes, they want to blame the center because they want center to give the state monies to pay these sort of committed expenditure. Salary, pension, servicing of your loan are all called committed. If a state government is running its affairs, I am sorry to comment like this, because I normally do not specifically talk about any one state, and even now I do not want to talk about any one state, although you are asking me specific to Kerala. I am talking on the principle which governs the question. The principle is for committed expenditure, meaning for expenditure which goes for salaries, which happens every month, for pensions, which happens every month and you know it in advance. Similarly, paying the interest for already borrowed monies, you know what it is. As soon as your budget is made, in the budget itself, you will make a provision, and that provision is for the 12 months. You will know about it. The assembly will pass it. After that, you will keep paying. If a state tells me they do not have money to pay even salaries, which means the budget that they presented, wherein that should have been shown, is gone haywire. So they should, in fact, I would think the assembly should be told that the budget said this, it included these expenditures naturally, but I am unable to give. Why? Say it to your own assembly. Say it to the assembly which actually is formed after a due process of election. If state can't pay its committed expenditure, I am not asking are you spending on capital expenditure, no, that can wait. This is a commitment, and that is why it is called committed expenditure.
It seems running to the Supreme Court is the latest pastime of the state government. Now there is a move to approach the Supreme Court against, obviously, I mean, even they know that they can't move against the Rashtrapati. So the officials of the Rashtrapati Bhavan, because some of the bills they have passed and sent for approval, the governor sent it to the Rashtrapati and it's not been approved. So what is the constitutional implication? What are they talking about in the state?
Total disrespect for the constitutional authorities. I can't see any other language that I can use in this case. You question the central government, all right, you are well within your right, you want to go and seek the Supreme Court's guidance. You question the Rashtrapati? It is unbelievable, and only Marxists can have this kind of a disruption as their first norm. You have to respect the constitution. You are sworn by that constitution. You contested election based on that constitution. Even as you go file your nomination to contest as an MLA or MP, you read and take an oath. And despite that, you want to take the Rashtrapati also to court? No, you can't take Rashtrapati, say it is all right, so I will take the PS of the Rashtrapati. A typical disruptionist, separatist, divisive approach which only the communists can take.